Hey there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again from Collector Auctions. And as you can see, I am sitting here in the parking lot. I'm waiting for my favorite LCS here in the Maryland area, Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, to open up for their big Thanksgiving weekend sale. This is day one of the sale, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I'm looking to go in and get in there early. That's why I'm here early. I'm one of the first people here. And I want to get in and find those big keys that I had spotlighted in the video that I put out a few episodes ago. I did a preview episode where I went in and I took a look at everything and I did some price comparisons and kind of knocked some things off my list and definitely highlighted some things that I really want. So hopefully you guys get a chance to watch that episode. But here I am, I'm waiting. As I'm sitting here already, one person has gotten in line. I'm going to have to get out there and probably be the next person in line because it's going to be a long line. A lot of people come in there early. A lot of people target these books early. And it can be kind of a scrum. You got to be in there and you got to get in there quick. So I'm going to sign off here. I am not going to shoot any video today because I am not going to have time because I'm going to be looking at the books and I've got to get to work afterwards. So stay tuned for just a moment and I will be right back and we'll hopefully show you some good books.
All right, everybody, I'm back after the big weekend sale at Cards, Comics, and Collectibles up in Reisterstown, Maryland. This is the store that I have been going to for over 20 plus years, and they always have this big sale over the Thanksgiving weekend. And the footage that you saw at the very beginning was right before the store opened on that Wednesday. And honestly, I ended up going back a second time to spend a little bit more time there on the Sunday. So that's kind of why this video is coming out a little bit later than I had wanted. Because I went back and I ended up picking up a few more things. And on that Sunday, I didn't have work. So I was able to spend a lot more time digging through just about every one of their boxes and picking out some more books to add to the collection for this weekend. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to get into the books. Let's just get right into it. I found some great books. And I'm not really sure which ones I picked up on Wednesday and which ones I picked up on Sunday, but we're going to go through them and we'll talk about them a little bit. So let's just get into the books. And I picked up some things that were good for the PC, just fun books, things that took me back to my childhood. There were some things in here that I wanted for the PC that are actually some pretty nice books. And then there were some ones that, and mostly, in most cases, I picked up books that are going to be for resale. I'm going to clean and press them, going to get them graded. I thought they were good prices, especially with the discount that they were running at the store for the weekend sale, or the Thanksgiving weekend sale. And I think there's definitely some room to make a little bit of money on some of these as an investment and to turn them around and sell them at better grades. I honestly think some of these are going to grade out pretty good. But we'll get into each one as we go through them. Let's just start at the very beginning with a book that has a little bit of value, but I bought it for sentimental reasons. It is Worlds Unknown #6. Now, this is a book that came out in 1974. It is, I don't know if it was based on the TV movie or the TV movie was based on it, but it was both comes from Theodore Sturgeon. And I remember this movie as a kid. I actually had this book as a kid. And if y'all remember the story, it's the TV movie is called Killdozer. And as a kid, I was fascinated by this. 1974, time this came out, I mean, I'm literally, what am I? I'm 6 years old at this point. And I'm watching this thing, and you've got this really bizarre setup where you've got a construction crew on a Pacific island. They're clearing the jungle to make an airstrip, and they end up disturbing an ancient temple. An ancient evil escapes and inhabits one of the local, one of their bulldozers at the site, and the bulldozer starts killing people. Now, this comic came out around that same time. I don't know if it was before or after, but it's the story. If you read the story in here, it's the story, the same as the TV movie. But this cover was always fascinating because it was not even close to looking like that. But I love this cover. It's really fascinating. It takes me back to my childhood. And this was a pretty decent copy here. And just to give you some prices, just in case I wanted to invest in this and get it graded, what this could go for. Now, 9/8, and I'm going to give you recent prices on everything, unless everything's going to be within the last month or two throughout the day for the rest of this video. unless I say that the price is something that's from a long time ago. Most of these things are going to be from November, October, maybe September at the earliest. But in most cases, so I won't have to repeat myself all day unless it's something much older. But 9.8 went for this for $306, a 9.6, $240. But then it really drops off if you're thinking about this as an investment book of any sort. 9.4 dropped all the way down to $42. Now, this is a really good copy. There is a little color rub down here. It's almost like a tick, but it's more like color rub. But the book is actually really nice. And if it had been a beat up copy of this, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, because I know I still have it in my PC from my original collection when I was buying books. Well, my mom was buying books when I was a kid. And I know I still have this book somewhere along the way. But this was a really nice copy of this. And I think it's important to, when you're buying stuff just for your collection, I mean, there's times when you buy stuff as run fillers and maybe you're not concerned about the condition. But as I get older and I add books to my collection, it isn't just to remember something from my childhood. It's actually, this is a really decent copy. And when I pass this collection on to my daughter at some point, I want her to have really good copies of just about anything I've got in there that she'll be able to turn around and hopefully, make a little bit of money on someday. And I literally just said, I've been real good about that, guys. My wife, who's a communications major, will bust on me for that. So I apologize, Lise. When I say, the answer is no, I don't know. So sorry for the tangent there, but my wife will appreciate that. But this is a good book just for fun. And that was a good way to start off the books I picked up over the weekend. I know I picked this one up on Sunday because it wasn't on my original list. It was after I was able to go through all of the books on Friday that I was able to run across this book, and I was like, okay, that's fine. It's in a really decent shape. Let's go ahead and pick it up just for funsies. All right. Actually, just to leave the book there for a little bit. All right, the next book, we start going down that road of looking for high-grade copies to clean and press and possibly get graded. And this one, actually, the price on this is coming down. The 9.8 on this has really come down recently, and I probably should have checked it a little bit closer. It wasn't one on the original list, but it is Battlestar Galactica #1, and I'd been looking for a really, really nice copy of this along the way. I wasn't searching for it. If I ran across it, it was going to have to be a high-grade copy. As I said, 9.8s have been coming down lately. Most recent was a 9.8 went for only $104. That's not, but in the same time, in the same month, this last month, it actually has went for $210. And that scares me a little bit. It definitely tells me that there's maybe a few people out there who really want this book, and there's a few people that, a lot of people don't really care enough about this book to have it going up in value. But you know what I mean. Really drops off. You got to have a 9.8 on this. 9.6s, $53. 9.4s, $55. I mean, again, over the last month. So there's not a lot of value in that 9.6, 9.4. It's got to be a 9.8 candidate. This book comes from 1979, so it's not a brand new book. But there's a lot of these books out there. I see these every show I go to. So probably should have passed on this just to save a little bit of money. But again, looking for a good copy of it. This was a really nice copy, so I went ahead and pulled the trigger. And hopefully this market comes back a little bit. But time I get it cleaned and pressed, hopefully the market's rebounded a little bit and it'll be worth a little bit more money as a 9.8. I probably, when I send this in, once I get this out and clean and press it, if it's not a 9.8 candidate, I'm not going to send it in. Or I'll send it in as a pre-screen only. So there you go on that. All right, here's the book I continue to pick up, and it's from my college days. It brings back a lot of great memories, and surprisingly, it does have a lot of value at a 9.8. In fact, 9.8 of this just went for $169. Again, it's another book that drops off the cliff at a 9.6. You got to have a 9.8. But it is a fan favorite for me for back in mid-80s when I was in college. Boris the Bear. It was a parody of all of the animal type books that were coming out at that time. The Usagi Jimbos, the Mutant Ninja Turtles, the radioactive belt black hamsters. I mean, it was Critters. I'm trying to think. Fish Police. I mean, it was basically making fun of all of that, and yet it was still part of that animal genre and everything. Fun book. It came out in 1986. It was July of 1986, and again, right in the middle of my college years, and again, brings back a lot of memories. Not a lot of value, but this wasn't a very expensive at all, especially with the 30% discount that they had on their premium books at Cards, Comics, and Collectibles. I didn't mind spending $5 on this. All right, now here's a book that I picked up on Sunday when I didn't see it originally because I hadn't gone through every box in my pre-video, the one where I went in there a couple days before the sale and I looked at everything. And guys, get a chance to check out that video. You can see every book that I was looking at. And I didn't get a chance to go through every box, but I did manage that on Sunday. And I picked this up. It is not a 9.8 Canon. There's a nice little, there's two little spine ticks over here. One of them, it's slightly color breaking, but it's funny. Right now, it's a book, it's a dollar bin book, honestly, that has popped onto the top 10 list right now on Cover Price and other top 10 lists. You see other channels talking about this book. I don't think I ever had this, but here it is. It is from Epic Comics, from Marvel, Alien Legion #1. In fact, I picked it up mostly because, oh wow, this book is really hot right now, and everybody's picking it up, and it wasn't expensive at all. In fact, I don't think I spent, yeah, I spent a whole $7 on this. So decent copy. I don't think I'm going to get it graded, but let me tell you what's happening right now. Because of the news, because of everything being on, it being a top 10 book at this current moment, 9.8 just sold for our best offer. It was $395 best offer, so I don't think it was quite that, but a 9.6 went for $158. So that right there, I don't think that's going to sustain. I think that'll probably come down. I think this book will fall off the list pretty quick and people will forget about it again, although it looks like it's been optioned and people, they've been talking about this to be an ongoing series of some sort, a movie series, I don't know. But there you go in there. So I bought into FOMO and picked up the hot book of the week, guys. All right, let's put these down and move over. Now, this was definitely on my list from the first day of the sale, and it is Marvel Age #1. I never had this. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Marvel Age, it was a preview book for Marvel Comics. They put it out themselves, and they would obviously promote their upcoming books and storylines in this. And I never had this one. In fact, I don't think I had any of these until probably into the, this would have been, what was it, 1983. I wasn't collecting comics, I was buying comics, so maybe I didn't see a lot of these, but I definitely didn't get these until probably into the 20s, and after that I started getting them all the time. And at that same time I was getting ready to start being able to have a monthly subscription to one of the wholesalers, and I'm sure I added this. I mean, it's only 25 cents, and you've got discounts on your pre-orders anyway. So, never had #1. #1's surprisingly valued. This is the thing that I did on the video, on the pre-sale video I talked about on this book right here. Marvel Age right here, 9.8s have been going recently for $225. 9.6s, again, falls off the cliff at $25. I mean, really, you got to get a 9.8. I think these prices right now are real indicative of the market. What you're seeing is the market's down, and the only value you're seeing a lot of things is the 9.8. People aren't willing to go ahead and spend money on lesser things. They want that 9.8. And I know people will bust on, oh, you're only interested in 9.8s. Well, I'm telling you, that's what the market is. The market is a 9.8 market, and on a lot of these books, I mean, this is 1983. It's not a new book, and even something like this, you've got to have that premium grade on there. But this was a really nice copy. It's going to take a little bit. There's some definitely some pressable defects on this. It is really thin. I'll be interested to get this out and actually kind of thumb through it a little bit to see just how many pages there were. I don't think there's hardly any pages in this thing at all. It is super thin. I know that the ones that even a few issues later were definitely more comic book size. They had more content. So looking forward to getting this into the press. That 9.8 candidate, this will probably have to be a pre-screen on this, because I don't want it to come back anything less than a 9.8. Other than that, I'd rather just keep it raw. It's a really decent copy, and it'll still have some value. Let's leave it up there for a little bit. It'll still have some value as a raw, but, you know, maybe a little bit more than what I paid for it. All right, again, another fun book right here. This you saw on the preview video. I got this because I had nearly the entire run of this book, but I never had the first issue. Now, this isn't the first appearance. I think that was, I want to say it was definitely one of the other DC books where they used to put the first appearances as a kind of a interior comic book within the comic book. And this was no exception, but this was the first issue of Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew. And never had this, but I had almost the entire run after this. And always enjoyed this as a kid. This is a book from 1982. Just a fun book. Not a lot of value, but 9/8 still run about $115. 9/6s, again, here we go. We're repeating the same pattern for only $49. So again, if this is a grading candidate, you would want this as a 9.8. All right. Now we're going down that road of run completion, but I didn't intend for this to happen. It just kind of popped up after the last couple months where it seemed like I've been picking up more and more of these books, and all of a sudden I'm working on a run of The Invaders. So I picked up this. You saw this in the preview video. It's issue number 6 of The Invaders. I was on the fence on the 2 Invaders books, and I ended up putting the other one back because I had issues 6 and 11 as the ones I was targeting, because those are the only 2 in really, really nice condition. And 11 I put back because I thought the price was a little bit high for what a 9.8 value could be. But the 9.6 actually has some surprising value. This is featuring the Liberty Legion here, Jack Kirby cover. It's not a first appearance. It is not a key book. But 9.8s run $300. Even a 9.6, $159. And that right there, the 9.6 price is what convinced me to go ahead and get this book. This book's 1976, so it's even older than most of the things we've talked about so far. 9.4 still has a value of about $79. And I didn't mind putting a few extra dollars into this. I think I ended up paying about $14 for that. To be honest with you, I think I overpaid for it. But again, it was in super nice condition. And that was the deciding factor, and the fact that the 9.6 definitely had some value at that grade. So, pick that up. All right. So I did switch gears on Sunday when I went back. It wasn't just comics. Now, I spent 3 to 4 hours just going through the bins, but one of the things that Cards, Comics, and Collectibles has a lot of are trade paperbacks and hardbounds. And the sale for this weekend, for this Thanksgiving weekend sale, is 50%. And I'm going, okay, let's see what other, for years, the last 20, 25 years, I've been going to this sale. Most of the trade paperbacks I've picked up over the years, I've picked up at this sale. And I've just continued to add. I don't go nuts, but I do pick up things that I'm interested in. And one of the things I've been doing is picking up collections of books that it would be pretty expensive to go back and buy all the back issues, but it would be pretty easy to buy this. In fact, I've got a good run of the paperback of the Marvel Masterworks editions. I got runs of Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Thor, Captain America, X-Men, Avengers I'm a little light on because I've got all the back issues on that. But on the other ones, I don't have all the back issues, but this was a great way to buy these things and be able to read all these books. Well, Thor, it didn't last I don't think they're still putting out the paperback versions of the Marvel Masterworks, and they've switched over to these Epic collections, and it is a collection of the books, but it can also include other stories if it's part of a storyline. It's not quite as clean as I would have liked for a trade paperback collection. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll show you the paperback I picked up. It is from Thor. It is the Epic collection. It is To Wake the Mangog, and I did this because it reprints issues. Let me think if I can remember this. 154 to 174. Now that includes the introduction of Mangog, who is this being that is definitely capable of destroying Thor. It's one of his major nemesises. Nemesises? Is that the right word? It has the first full Warlock storyline, as well as the Origin of Galactus storylines. Most of this, I think all of this is Jack Kirby still at this point. Stan's still writing, of course, but it's still the Jack Kirby stories all the way up to 74. I'm not sure. I know John Buscema starts doing the art after that at some point, but I don't remember which issue it starts. But I thought this was real good. And again, 50% off the price of this book. I kind of wanted to pick up one of these books like this just to, it's not really filling in your collection. It's not a run filler in the sense that you're actually getting the books, but it is a run filler in the sense that it's getting you being able to read back issues where you're not having to spend that kind of money. So I picked that up. That was the only paperback I ended up picking up. But I did end up picking up something else. And I've got this over here. And I did pick this up on Wednesday. It is something that I have continued to pick up at Cards, Comics, and Collectibles over the last 20 years, because over the years, it's always been 50% off during a sale, but usually on Sundays in years past, they would have the paperbacks and hardbounds for 60% off, and I usually would come back on that Sunday just for that. Now this year, they didn't have that increased discount on Sunday. They still had that, but I was afraid that this book would not be there on Sunday by the time I came back. It was one of the first three things that I picked up because I only had 2 copies of it. And what's funny is I went back on Sunday and I still had the second copy. Nobody was interested in it. And I'm going, wow, this was like the second thing that I picked up. And let me show you here. You see this big giant box right here? This right here contains one of the IDW artist editions. And it is, here, let me dig it out here. Now, I haven't unwrapped it from its wrap, but I'll show it to you. It is Frank Miller's Daredevil. And you saw this on the preview video, and I wanted to pick this up because, sorry about the ring light, guys. What I wanted to do is eventually, hopefully, we'll get to see another Frank Miller signing at some point, and we'll get him to sign this. But if you guys aren't familiar with these artist editions, these things are this big 12 by 18-ish size books. They are this big because what they do is they reproduce the original artwork to runs of comics, and you can see the original, how the artwork actually looks. And I'm going to zoom in on this. You can see the cover. As I said, I haven't opened this up yet. That's why it's still a little shiny there. But you can see the original artwork to the cover to Daredevil 168 right here on the cover. And as you can get a little bit closer, can you see the lightning? This is a really good example of what this artwork looks like in here. You can see the whiteout that was used to help create that lightning strike behind Elektra. And you can see the different color between that and the white of the page. Well, when you reproduce this in the comics, you don't see that difference. You don't see those kind of things on the reproduced artwork when they take that image and then take it for the comics and they do the printing. But in this book, what you're seeing is original artwork just like this. And you can see the mistakes, you can see pencil lines, you can see the edges of zipatone if it's used, you can see corrections. If they did a stat where they would paste something over top of it, you can actually see the edges of that. They've actually taken an artwork of the artwork, not doing a print and cleaning up all of the mistakes or anything like that. So I ended up picking that up, and I couldn't be happier with that. That is a super nice addition. Hopefully we'll get to do another Frank Miller signing at some point, and we'll send that in. I mean, that's one that'll have to be done in person. Obviously you can't send that to CGC or anything like that, but couldn't be happier to have another artist edition in the collection. I've got a bunch sitting over here beside me. Some of them have been signed. I've got one, The Return of Beta Ray Bill from Thor with Walt Simons, who signed it. I've got an Asagi Jimbo one that's signed. I've got a Bill Sienkiewicz one that's signed. Hopefully someday Dave Gibbons will return to Baltimore Comic-Con and I can get that Watchmen one done. So definitely these are fun things to have. So, all right. So let's get back to the comics, because that was the main thing we went. Even though that artist edition was number 3 on my list, I still went back for the comics, right, guys? It's still about the comics. And I've got two mindsets when I collect. One's for the PC, one's for resale. And if you guys ever watch Bronzeville Comics, Jim talks about putting comics into 4 different categories. I haven't been so sophisticated, but I definitely look at books for the PC and for resale. And most of the times it can be a combination. They kind of go over both things there. So some of these, as I said, are definitely ones I don't mind having in my PC, but I don't mind selling at some point too. So I look at it kind of the same way, and unless it's just for fun, like the World's Unknown book, that was for fun and that was for me. It wasn't really for resale. But a lot of these, I'd love to have these in my collection, but I definitely, with the values and things like that, I wouldn't mind reselling. And that's the case with this one right here. This is a book that I've had before. Don't know if I've actually got it graded yet. I've got one in the shop, but I picked this one up because it looked super clean. And with the prices down on books right now, and with the discounts and everything, I picked another copy of Batman number 6 up. This is from the New 52. This is the first appearance of the Court of the Owls. Sorry, I stumbled over that. And Greg Capullo doing the art. You got Scott Snyder. This is a really nice copy. Needs a little bit of a press, but this still has a tremendous value. And I looked it up when I was at the I looked it up when I was at the comic store on Sunday, right there on the app, and 9.8s recently just sold $450 for a 9.8. I'm going, wow, that's shocking. I figured that price had really dropped at this point. But what had really dropped was the 9.6. 9.6 ranged in November here from $76 to $144. So that $76 scares me a little bit. $144 still sounds pretty good. But again, really super copy, really super nice copy. And we'll get that in the shop. We'll get it pressed. We'll get it into the CGC at some point on that. Honestly, I'm probably going to look to resell it if the price is out there really good. Otherwise, I'm just going to hold on it into the PC for the time being. But couple more books left for what I ended up picking up on this Thanksgiving weekend sale. This book was not on my list, but I still picked it up on the first day of the sale. I ran across it because I did have another book from that line of books that I was interested in. I targeted that particular book on my pre-video. You saw it, and I'll tell you what it is in a second. And when I went back to look at it a second time, I decided, no, I'm going to pass on it. The defects, just a few little ticks that I didn't like, and so I passed on it, but it gave me a chance to look through the rest of the books in that run of books, and I ended up picking this up because it looked really nice. I mean, it's got some pressable defects. I don't see the color breaks, but it is a copy of X-Men issue 102, this great cover with Juggernaut and Colossus, and I don't think I ever had this book. I don't think I've ever had this book, to be honest with you. I knew I didn't have it as a kid, and I definitely don't think I even have a graded version of this in the PC. But I went ahead and added this because I thought the price was pretty good, and especially with the discount, and the surprising value on this was shocking. Now, this book came out in 1976. It has the Origin of Storm in it. I've read it through the Marvel Masterworks editions like we talked about before, but I've never actually had the comic book, so it'll be interesting to kind of thumb through this when I'm getting ready to clean and press it. 9.8s, guys. Over $1,800. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good. 9.6s recently just went for $600 with best offer, so it was definitely a little bit less than that, but even a 9.4 went for $350. Now, as clean as this book is, that right there was, that's why I picked it up. I mean, immediately just picked that up, and this is a book that will definitely get cleaned and pressed, and I'll keep it in the PC no matter what the grade is for a bit, but honestly, that is a book I am looking to hopefully make a little bit of money on, help pay for some of these books and some of these CGC orders. But yeah, I think this was the surprisingly good pickup for the price, with probably the biggest potential of anything in here at this point. Everything else has a little bit of value and maybe a little bit of surprising value, but this one right here I think has the most potential just because it has so much value at some of the lower grades. So that was really good. So that brings us down to the two final books that I picked up at the show. Now, you guys who watch this channel, you know that I did that pre-show and you saw the books I was looking at. And some of you actually wrote in and said, hey, I'd picked that up, or we talked about certain books. And yeah, these are the first two books that I picked up. In fact, this was I should say, one of them's the first book I picked up. The other one is the third book I picked up. The second thing I picked up was that artist edition by Frank Miller. But this right here, I kind of wanted it at my PC. I talked about it on that other video. It's Uncle Scrooge number 64. And now this came out in 1966. This is a book that is banned by Disney. They cannot do reprints on this book. It is a Carl Barks story, a Vietnam War story called Treasure of Marco Polo. And it's banned from reprints because, I guess, of the war themes. I think they talk about World War III themes. I've seen different people talk about it. I have not broken this book open yet, out of the bag, so I can take a look at it. But I'm real curious about this because earlier in the day, I should say in the week, last week, I had just been to a comic show, and one of my favorite dealers there had this book. And we were talking about the banned books by Disney that cannot be reprinted. The Don Rosa, Life of Scrooge McDuck, some of those issues cannot be reprinted. Well, it turns out this one cannot be reprinted as well. And I never knew that. But the copy that my buddy had at the comic show was a much lesser copy. And I just, for the novelty, I wasn't going to pick it up at the show. I kind of wanted a much better condition. Well, later that day, after I went to that show, I went to my card store, or my comic shop, and I found that they had this book. You guys see it in the video. You saw that this was in there, and I talked about it there as well. And I said, okay, I'm going to pick this up. It's probably in that 6.0, 6.5 range, but I'm not too worried about the regrading on this. Now, I will get it in the shop, and I will clean and press this, and I will see how good I can actually get it. 9.4s, I couldn't find a lot of sales on this. In fact, at least recent sales. In fact, there was nothing above a 9.4. 9.4s, $576. That was here in this year. But the next one I could find was a 9.2 that went back in 2015. 2015 for $325. And I'm going, I don't know how to translate that, because there wasn't, you go down to 6.0s and 5.0s, and there's just not a lot of copies of this. So this is going to be one of those ones I may end up cleaning and pressing it and sending it in just for fun to see where it actually stands, because there's not a lot out there, and with the fact that it's been banned, it's got to have some desirability. It'd be curious to see. This might be a fun video just to do over a course of time. Let's clean and press. We've talked about it now. Let's clean and press it. Let's get it graded, see what the grade is, and let's talk about, let's actually, maybe I put it out there for sale and we see where the market is on things. This would be an interesting book to do that on. But guys, this brings me to the very last book, and it was the very first book that I picked up at the show. I spotlighted it right there at the forefront of that preview video, and I said I wanted to get this book because the condition looks really, really good. And I'm excited about this. Let me just show it to you. It is my very first EC Comics book. Yeah, it's not one of the horror titles, but it gets me into that door a little bit. And I bought this because of the condition. And the condition is really nice. It is Frontline Combat number 10. And I saw this. It gives me a chance to get into the EC room. It gives me a chance to clean and press this. I think this is a really nice copy. And I'm looking forward to it. I'll give you some prices, and I'll tell you, this is why I did this. 9.8. Now, this is not 9.8. I'm just going to give you prices again. And this is where I couldn't find a lot out there on the census or of recent sales. 9.8 was 2018 for almost $1,800. And again, this is not 9.8, but I think it's going to, without going, and I haven't opened it up completely. I took a little bit of a chance on that. I probably should have definitely opened some of these books up and take a look at them, but better. Guys, that's something you should do. I'm really bad about checking every one of these books when I put the money out sometimes. But 9.0 for $425 in 2021, and 8.0, $191 in 2017, and then a 6.0 for $250 in 2022. So what that's telling me is that I think there's definitely some meat on the bone on this one. I think it has some potential. And God forbid I get this thing up above a 6.0. Let's say we get that into that 9. Let's say 8 to 8.5 range. I cannot go by that price that I just gave you for the 8.0. That was $191 in 2017. Guys, I mean, it's a few years even before the pandemic. So the market's completely changed. I mean, guys, the market's completely changed in the last 6 months. So I cannot read too much into what that price was then. That 6.0 at $250 in 2022 is about as close as I can get to saying, okay, if you can get this to an 8, maybe you're talking at that point, it's a $300, $400 book. I'm not really sure. You'll have to do some more research once I get this one into the shop and get it back from CGC. So real happy with that though. That's a really nice book. It was a really nice cover. There's some minor imperfections down through here, but it's a pretty tight copy. I mean, the corners are fantastic. No dog ears, sharp. They're sharp corners. And this book comes from 1953, guys. I mean, how does this book stay in this condition that long? I mean, somebody took care of this book, but happy to have it in the PC right now. I can't wait to get that into the shop and get it into CGC. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Happy Thanksgiving. If I haven't already said that already. Sorry I'm a little bit late on this. I went back on Sunday after the first day of the sale, and I picked up a few more things. So I delayed taping all this until I got everything together and I could sit there and give you all the values for everything. But I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving. It was pretty low-key, which I enjoyed. But leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the books today. And if you're ever interested in anything you ever see on the channel, just reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account. You can also check out what I currently have for sale on my eBay store or on my Shortbox page. I've got those links down below in the description of today's video. But that's it, guys. You guys take care and enjoy the rest of the day. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you for the next episode. And remember, guys, every comic has a story.